The following podcast is non-profit and is based on the IGCSE history curriculum. Hello listeners. In today's episode, I'll be discussing the Hungarian Revolution and the Soviet Invasion of Hungary. As World War II was ending, the Soviet Red Army had liberated many countries in Eastern Europe. Then they tried to spread their influence of communism. How did the communist Hungarian leader, Rákosi, secure a one-party dictatorship? He used propaganda by creating many posters and handing out flyers which showed how great communism supposedly was. When the communists came to power, he trialed, jailed, and/or executed political opponents. And by the next elections, there were no other political parties. Why did Hungarians hate life under Rákosi and the Soviet communist rule? Firstly, as Hungary was to be industrialized, high production requirements were set, and if you didn't meet them, you were an enemy of the people. So workers tried to speed up production, meaning the outputted items were much more poor quality as workers tried to cut corners. Secondly, Russians took a large amount of food out of the country, so there was a shortage of potatoes and bread. They also took Hungarian oxen and in propaganda claimed to give peasants Russian oxen. Thirdly, Rákosi had secret police who had files on people and arrested people, or even executed them if they disagreed with the government. They also sent at least 1 in 5 people to concentration camps. After Stalin's death in 1953, there were cracks in the Hungarian government. Workers in Eastern Germany rebelled and demanded higher pay, while in February 1953, Khrushchev made a speech listing Stalin's crimes. Rákosi was forced to admit his own errors and ended up leaving Hungary. On October 23, 1956, students held an unofficial demonstration under communist rule demanding free speech, democratic elections, and the withdrawal of Soviet troops. Symbols of communist power were destroyed. For example, the hammer and sickle were ripped out of the Hungarian flag, and Soviet books and propaganda were burnt, while a large statue of Stalin was smashed up. The protesters wanted their demands to be broadcast to the nation through the Hungarian state radio. However, when they went to the building, Arbo men, the Hungarian secret police force, fired on them from inside the building. Workers became freedom fighters. The Soviet Red Army tanks came into the city to restore law and order. A revolution had begun. Hungarian policemen, children also joined. After 300 unarmed protesters were killed, the Arbo headquarters was invaded, and Arbo men were beaten to death all over Hungary in revenge. Hungarian freedom fighters were able to defeat the Soviet troops and Hungarian secret police force. A number of changes were made to Hungary. 1. Soviet tanks withdrew from Hungary. Secondly, prisons were opened and prisoners' repression were let out. 3. Soviet diplomats and their families left. However, Soviet leaders quickly began to worry. This is because not only did Imre Nagy, the new Hungarian leader, announce free elections, which would most likely mean the end of communist rule, but there were also rumors that he was intending to withdraw Hungary from the Warsaw Pact, which was the Eastern European military alliance controlled by the USSR. On the 1st of November, the Soviets invaded Hungary. Thousands of Soviet soldiers and tanks crossed back into Hungary, resulting in Imre Nagy announcing that if they were not withdrawn, the government would proclaim Hungarian neutrality and break away from Soviet control. The Soviets did not listen, and tanks re-entered Budapest. Imre Nagy was arrested and executed, while 200,000 fled, with thousands arrested and sent to labor camps. Overall, up to 3,000 Hungarians were killed. This is the end of the podcast. Thank you for listening.